10, 9, ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Welcome to part 3 of our build of the Estes 1/100th scale Saturn V kit. In this installment, we'll be assembling much of the upper section of the airframe. This includes the adapter section that connects the second stage of the rocket, called the S2 stage, to the third stage, which is called the S-IVB in 60s NASA speak. The construction of a conical adapter section may be a new technique for many modelers, but it really isn't that difficult at all. We'll begin by separating the two adapter section centering rings from their cardstock backing sheet. We're using a sharp number 11 blade for this. We'll also separate these two gussets, or reinforcement parts, which will build up into a recovery system anchor for the entire upper section of our model. With the cardstock parts free, we'll gather the other bits we need for this step. In addition to the centering rings and the reinforcement gussets, keep one of the two center bits from those rings, which will be needed to cover the bottom of this section. The longer of the two short accessory tubes will be the base for this assembly. We'll also need the third stage tube we've already primed and sanded, as well as the cardstock piece with the adapter shroud. Finally, there's a section of Kevlar cord for the recovery system anchor. We'll be using Titebond 2 for assembly, which is ideal for paper-to-paper joints that won't be visible on the outside of our model. Now, using this big bottle is a little inconvenient and unwieldy, so I like to repackage that glue in these little tiny squeeze bottles that are available on Amazon. Let's begin construction. Our first task will be to laminate these two gusset pieces and then position those onto our centering ring. It's easy enough to do. We'll smear that around with our finger, so high tech, and then position that onto the centering ring. I've got a paper towel just off screen. Remember I said this skewer would make another appearance? It's probably going to make several appearances. Here's one of the first ones. I'm aligning the holes through the 3 layers of material. That will work fine. We'll let that dry for about 15 minutes before we move on to the next step. I've covered our cutting mat with some waxed paper, as there's the possibility of a little glue squeeze out here. We'll need our accessory ring and the laminated 3-piece centering ring that we just put together. I'll do a dry run first. What we're going to do is position this down in the base of the accessory ring and then run a bead of glue, very thin bead, all the way around the interior of that. We'll smooth that out with our finger. Yes, it will make quite a mess. And then we'll just let it dry. I'm using the back end of an X-Acto blade to position that down at the base of the ring. We'll bring our glue in. Thin bead of glue all the way around. And then we'll smear it with our finger. I got just a little bit of glue inside one of our holes. I'll clear that out with our skewer. And we'll let that dry for about 15 minutes. Now our kit directions would have us install the third stage at this point. We're not going to do that. And the reason is, I would prefer to put this ring in place and be able to get at the back side of it with plenty of glue to make a really strong fillet in there. It's very easy to do. Just set the ring in place, flip the assembly over, get your finger in there, and press the ring down so that it's in place. It's a little tough to visualize, but we'll be able to get the glue into this joint much easier this way. Let's get started. I'll fit the ring in place. flip it over, press the ring down into position, check the other side, it looks good. The glue will go in. And I can even use a Q-tip to spread that around through the joint. After that dries, we'll have a very clean, strong joint. While we wait for that adhesive to dry, there are a couple of minor tasks we can go ahead and take care of. First, we need to get a reference line straight up and down our third stage airframe tube. The instructions included with the kit suggest that you use the edge of a door frame for that. Now, I've done that in the past. My experience, though, is that the edge of a door frame tends to not be very sharp, and sometimes you end up with a wavy line. I've found it's much easier to use the edge of certain types of rulers that have a ledge, an angle built into them. We could get a very straight line if we use the edge of this ruler. Another possibility is to use a sanding bar. That would also provide a very sharp edge. And another way to do it is to use the tools that Estes provides for that very task. This is an angle tool, a fin alignment guide, if you will, that Estes has sold for many, many years. And you can actually use that to put a very straight line on a tube. Perfect. The other little task we can knock out is to install our shock cord anchor into the adapter base. Now, the kit provides a generous amount of Kevlar line, and they suggest that you use 6 inches of it for this particular application. I'm going to do 8 inches instead. I'm going to thread this through one of the holes and then back through, and then we'll tie a knot here. Now we don't want this knot coming undone, so what I'm going to do is hit it with just a few drops of thin CA adhesive and then pull that tight so that it's hidden inside the adapter. I'm then going to put just a couple of drops of accelerator on there because I'm impatient, and that should do the trick. Our recovery system anchor is in place. The cutting mat is out of the way, and I've put down some waxed paper on the workbench. The reason I've done that is that there is a slot here on my workbench, and I'm going to take advantage of the fact that that slot is there. We're going to glue the adapter base to the third stage, apply adhesive right here, we'll be using Type Bond 2, on both sides, and then pull the tube forward a bit so that it's right at the aft edge of the adapter base. We're going to set it down here with that shock cord anchor through the slot so that everything can sit perfectly flat on the workbench until the glue sets up. The other thing we're going to do is we are going to align the reference line we just created on the tube with the center of our shock cord anchor, our recovery system anchor. Let's get started. The tube is roughly in place. About 1/8 of an inch is coming out of the base of the adapter, and the reference line is lined up with the shock cord anchor. We'll pull that and do the other side. We'll double check that the alignment line is in line with the shot cord anchor, and it is. And we'll now set this on the workbench with the shot cord anchor through the slot in the workbench. We need to attach this cover plate to the bottom of the adapter section. There's a couple challenges here. First, the plate itself has a lot of flex to it. It's not perfectly flat. Second, there's not a lot of attachment area there. The ledge between the two is not that great. So what I think I'm going to use is 5-minute epoxy to attach this part. There are a couple reasons for that. First, it's strong. Second, it's a good balance between strength and setup time. I'm going to have to sit here and hold this while the glue sets up. I'll use a Q-tip to apply some adhesive. And I'll set the plate in place. I'll apply some more adhesive around the edge. And we'll hold it in place. And with that, the cover is in place. We're ready to cut out the shroud piece now. Now, one of my secrets is that I keep plenty of knife blades and knife handles ready to go at any time. I go through dozens of these on a project like this. I buy blades in boxes of 100 and I go through them pretty quickly. Another one of my tricks is that I use magnification a great deal. This is a simple head-worn magnifier. You could probably pick one up on Amazon for about $30, and it makes a huge difference when doing close work like this. I have my magnification on, and we're going to start by cutting the straight pieces. We're going to try to go straight down the middle of the black line. My head may get in the way here a bit. We were able to use the straight edge to assist on those two cuts. The rest is all freehand though. This is a little trickier. Again, my head may get in the way. That cut is complete. I can already feel the knife dulling, so I'll switch out to a new one. And our shroud is free. Next, I'll cut out the gluing tab. And as long as we're here, let's cut out our shot cord mounts. We'll be needing those in a later step. Our next task will be to glue up our shroud. Now, one thing that's going to make this easier to do is if we put a pre-curl in this. We could just wrap it together, and that's one way to do it. There's the risk, though, that we might put a crease in it somewhere. We don't want to do that. So what I've found works well is to wrap this gently around something round. I found my glue bottle works great for this. I'm trying to force some curvature into the paper. I'll go over it a couple of times. and then we'll check our progress. That's pretty good there. Next, we're going to tape the ends of the shroud together. I've got a piece of green masking tape here. I'm going to burnish one side of the shroud down. Bring it around. This may be a little tricky to see on camera. And bring the ends of the shroud together. And then burnish that down. I'll lift that up so you can see how that works. What we'll do next is put some glue on the tab and apply it in place on the inside of the shroud. We're using Titebond for this. One of the reasons for that is that Titebond is a flexible glue. We want to make sure we cover the entirety of that tab. This is going to go in place on the inside of the shroud. I'll work it down into place. And there's one more thing I'd like to do. I'd like to clamp this. I've got a wood block, a piece of waxed paper, another wood block, and another piece of waxed paper. I'm going to set that on top of the waxed paper, on top of the first wood block, slip the second piece of waxed paper in place, put the other block in place, and hold that. Next, I'll bring a wood clamp in. And we'll leave it like that for about an hour to let the glue set up. Our glue should have set up by now, so we can unclamp this. And we've got a great looking shroud. We'll trim away the excess green tape. I'm going to leave the green tape on there until after we get the shroud in place on the third stage. Let's test the fit. Just a little bit of wiggling is all it takes to get the shroud to fit just over the adapter base. And the fit is perfect. The next thing we'll do is draw a line onto the third stage at the top of the shroud. The next thing we'll want to do is carefully slide the shroud forward so that it's ahead of the line we just drew. To install the shroud, we're going to put a thin film of Titebond 2 just below this line and again at the very forward edge of the adapter base. To keep our fingers clean, I'm going to use a Q-tip. We're going to move quickly. We don't want this adhesive to set up too fast. Just the barest amount at the forward edge of the adapter base. We'll want to align the seam with our alignment line. We'll peel the green tape off. And this component is complete. In our next installment, we'll be assembling and painting the F1 engine nozzles for static display. Thanks for watching.